Hi friends, welcome to Info Club. Today we are going to discuss about Form INC3. It's a nominee consent form. Before understanding the concept, we have to understand what is meant by one person company and we have to know about who is called as a nominee. Okay. Now, what is meant by one person company? A company which has only one person as a member. So, let's take an example. Mr. X is there. He wants to start a business, but he wants to start a business in the form of a company and he doesn't want any other persons to be involved in that company. Then Mr. X will become the only shareholder and Mr. X will become the only director in the company. Such kind of company is known as one person company. Then let's understand the concept of nominee. Who is called as a nominee? The person who takes care of the company. This concept is in case of the company. For example, see, there is a person called Y. A person called Y. She wants to open an account in a bank. She opened the account and she appoints a person who will take care of the money and who will distribute to the legal heads. So the person who will take care of the money in this example is the nominee who is appointed by the account holder. So at the time of death of the account holder, the nominee will take the money from the bank and later on the money can be used by the nominee or it can, if there is any legal heads, the nominee can distribute the same to the legal heads. Okay, so the person who, in this example, the person who takes care of the money and the person appointed by the accounted holder is known as a nominee. Okay, now we have gone through one person company and who is a nominee, and let's know about what is meant by nominee consent form. So here in the above example, account holder appoints a person who takes care of the money. He can be called as a nominee. So in case of companies, to be appointed as a nominee, to act as a nominee, the nominee has to give a written consent to the person who appoints him. So, in written consent, what is that written consent? That consent stating that the nominee will accept to be appointed as a nominee for the company. Okay, so the consent form is nothing but the nominee, the agreement form is nothing but the nominee consent form. Okay, now we understand what is meant by one person company and who can be called as a nominee and what is the nominee consent form. So, as per our topic INC3 nominee consent form, as per Companies Act 2013, Section 3, Subsection 1, and the Companies Incorporations Rule 2014, Rule 4, defines the provisions under which the nominee consent form has to be filed with ROC. Let's see what is the purpose of the e-form. So why we have to file e-form INC3 with ROC. Okay. Now, one person company is required to indicate the name of the other person as nominee in its memorandum with his prior written consent and who shall become the member of the company in case of subscriber or member's death or incapacity to contract, and such consent of the nominee shall be submitted to the registrar in this e-form INC 3. So, one person company, the member of the one person company is required, the company has to is required to indicate, it has to tell to the ROC that the name of the other person as nominee in its memorandum. So at the time of registration of one person company itself, the member or the one person company has to indicate the person's name as nominee in their memorandum. So at the time of registration, see each and every company, either it may be a private company or one person company, whatever, they have to file a memorandum of association and articles of association. In memorandum of association, the person who wants to become as a member, he has to subscribe to the memorandum. So at the time of subscription itself, the member has to appoint a nominee and the name of the nominee has to be entered into the memorandum. So why? So what is the reason that the member has to appoint a nominee? If you see rule 4, rule number 1 here, the subscriber to the memorandum has to nominate a person as nominee. Why? What is the reason for nomination? Suppose in the event of death or incapacity to contract by the subscriber in the sense the person who is appointing. So if in case if there is a death of the subscriber and a incapacity to the contract, then the person who is called as a nominee will become the member of one person company. So this is the reason why the subscriber has to nominate a person at the time of incorporation. Okay, then so to inform to the ROC, see a person can't go directly to the ROC and he will tell that this is the person I want to appoint as a nominee. So there is some format, there will be some procedures. So one of the procedure is like he has to obtain a written consent from the nominee in the form of INC3. Then this form has to be attached at the time of incorporation of the company. Okay, so this is the purpose of E form INC3. Then let us move to what is meant by section 3 subsection 1. See, a company may be formed for any lawful purpose. So, if a person or if a group of persons, if they want to form a company, there should be a lawful purpose. Suppose if any group of people want to form a public company, there should be a minimum of 7 members and there may be more than 7 members. And if they want to form a private company, there should be 2 members or more than two also will be there. And if it is a one person company, one person will be there, and that one person company can be treated as a private limited company. Okay, then note here we should note that if they want to become any of the persons in public company or private company or one person company, if they want to become the member of the company, they have to subscribe their names or his name to the memorandum. So if they subscribe, if any person, if they subscribe to the memorandum, then he will be called as a member of the company. And at the time of subscription itself, they have to comply with the requirements of this act in respect of registration. So if they want to register a company, they have to subscribe their names into the memoranda and they have to comply with the requirements of this act is nothing but Companies Act 2013. So section 3 subsection 1 of Companies Act 2013 defines that a company can be formed for any lawful purpose. If they want to form, if any of the group of persons want to form a public company, there should be minimum of 7 members and more than 7 members also will be there. And if it is a private company, there should be 2 persons and more than 2 persons also can be there. And one person company, there will be only one member and only one director. And this one person can be company can be treated as a private limited company. And they have to subscribe their names or his name to the memorandum. And they have to comply with the requirements of this act in respect of registration. Okay, then we'll move to the rules. Incorporation rules, Company Incorporation Rules 2014. Rule 4 gives the provisions which are relating to INC 3 and at what time it has to be filed and in what situation it has to be filed, etc. See, if you go for Rule 4 subsection 1, we already learned about this. The time of incorporation itself, the subscriber to memorandum has to nominate a person. So why he has to nominate? In the event of death or incapacity to contract by subscriber, nominee will become the member of one person company. And before nominating that person, a written consent from whom? From nominee, who has to take in? The subscriber or member has to take the written consent or obtain the written consent from the nominee. Okay, then if you see rule 2, at the time of incorporation, name of the nominee to be entered in the memorandum and the nomination in form number INC 32 along with the consent of such nominee obtained in form number INC 3 to be filed with the register along with prescribed fee as per company's registration offices and fees rules 2014. So this INC 3 this INC 3 nominee consent form has to be attached along with form number INC 32. INC 32 is nothing but the form which has to be filed at the time of incorporation. That is called as SPICE form. Okay, previously it is a SPICE form, now it is a SPICE plus form. Okay, now so at the time of incorporation, while filing form INC 32, the one person company has to attach the written consent from the nominee in the form of INC 3 by paying the prescribed fee as per company's registration offices and fees rules 2014 to the registrar. Okay, so at the time of incorporation itself, the form INC 3 has to be filed with the ROC. Okay, then let's go for rule 4 subsection. So rule 4 subrule 3. See, withdraw consent. See, the nominee has an option that he can withdraw his consent. Suppose at the time of incorporation, the nominee has given his consent in form INC 3 and the subscriber, in this one person company, has filed the form INC 3 along with INC 32 to the ROC. But suppose the nominee who has appointed at the time of incorporation, he does not want to continue as a nominee, he can withdraw his consent. So the person nominated can withdraw his consent by giving notice in writing to sole member and one person company. So if the nominee want to withdraw, he has to give a notice to the sole member, that is only one member who is there in the one person company, and also for the one person company he has to give a notice stating that I am withdrawing the consent. Okay, so as per rule 3, he will have a right, he can withdraw the consent. So in this kind of situation, if any nominated person want to withdraw his consent, then within 15 days of receipt of withdraw consent, so nominee will give the withdraw consent within 15 days of receipt of the withdraw consent. The subscriber, that is the member, has to appoint a new nominee after obtaining the written consent. So actually one nominee will be there who has been appointed at the time of incorporation. If he wants to withdraw, he has to give a notice to the sole member, that's member and one person company. So within 15 days of receipt of the withdraw consent by the subscriber, that is the member, he has to appoint a new nominee after obtaining a written consent. So within 15 days of receipt of the withdraw consent, then the subscriber has to appoint a new nominee after obtaining the written consent in the form of INC 3 again. Okay, then the company has to intimate and the subscriber has to intimate to the company in writing along with written consent of nominee. So here what happened, nominee already who was there as a nominee, he will withdraw and he has to give a notice to the company and also the member within 15 days of receipt of the withdraw consent, he has to appoint a new nominee after obtaining the written consent, and he has to intimate to the company in writing along with written consent of new nominee. Okay, then rule 4 of subrule 4 states that Form INC4. What is mean by Form INC4? It is a form stating the change in member or nominee in one-person company. So, if there is any change or if there is any change in number or if there is any change in nominee, the company has to have to file a form INC4 with ROC. Okay. So what is rule 4 sub rule 4 defines? The company has to file INC4 with ROC within 30 days of receipt of notice of withdrawal consent consent along with written consent in form INC3 along with prescribed fee. See, here sub rule 3 states that the nominee can give a withdrawal consent in the form of notice to sole member and one person company. Okay, so the subscriber, that is the member, within 15 days of receipt of withdrawal consent, what he has to do? He has to appoint a new nominee and he has to obtain a written consent from the new nominee, and he has to intimate that to the company along with the written consent. So once the subscriber intimates the same to the company, what the company has to do within 30 days of receipt of notice of withdrawal, that is to say, from the nominee, the company would have received a notice. From that time, within 30 days, the company has to file Form INC4 along with written consent of new nominee in Form INC3 with prescribed fee to the ROC. So it has to file the INC4 along with INC3 with prescribed fee to the ROC. Okay. Then rule 4 sub rule 5. What rule 4 sub rule 5 states? If there is any change in the nominee, so subscriber, see previous sub rules, what it says, nominee can give a withdraw consent. In the sense, nominee himself, he want to withdraw from the consent. But in sub rule 5, what it states, if the member or the subscriber, if he wants to change the nominee for at any time, he has a right, subscriber has a right that he can change his nominee at any time for any reason. Okay, he can change the nominee. So subscriber or member can change the name of the nominee at any time for any reason after obtaining the prior consent of such other person in form INC3. See, suppose a member or subscriber thinks that the person who has nominated before, he doesn't suit for that position, then he can change the nominee at any time for any reason. But to appoint that another person, he has to obtain a written consent in the form INC3 from that another person. And after receiving that, he has to intimate to the company, and the company within 30 days of intimation of such change. So when the company receives the intimation of such change, it has to file INC4 along with form INC3 with ROC along with prescribed fee. So here if you see, even in case of withdraw consent by the nominee, and also when the subscriber changes the nominee, in both the cases, from the date of receipt of such notices, the company has to file INC4 along with INC3 written consent with prescribed fee with ROC. So with ROC, the company has to file this form stating that in case of withdraw consent, that old nominee has been withdrawn, a new nominee has been appointed, and the same way in change of the nominee by subscriber also, that old nominee is not there, and in place of him the new nominee is appointed. So in this way the company will intimate the ROC about the change. Okay. Then rule 4 sub rule 6. What rule 4 sub rule 6 says? A sole member of one person company ceases to be the member in the event of death or incapacity to the contract. See, INC 3 at the time of incorporation itself, what the subscriber has to do, he has to obtain a written consent from the nominee, and he has to intimate or indicate his the nominee name in the memorandum. Why? We have learned what is the reason for that, because at the time of death or incapacity to contract by subscriber, the nominee will become the member of one person company. So this is the reason. The rule 6 also states the same. See, suppose if the sole member of one person company ceases to be a member in the event of death, suppose the person has died and he is incapacity to contract, then nominee will become the member of one person company. So in such kind of cases, nominee will become the member of one person company. The new member shall nominate within 15 days of becoming of member a nominee. So the new member, after the death of previous member, the nominee will become the new member, and within 15 days of becoming a member, the new member has to appoint a nominee. Understood? So within 15 days of appointment, he has to appoint a nominee. And company has to file with ROC an intimation of such cessation and nomination in form INC4 along with the fee prescribed within 30 days of change in membership and with prior written consent of person so nominated in form INC3. So as per sub rule 6 of rule 4 states that, so if the member of one person, if he ceases to be a member in the event of death or incapacity of the contract, then the nominee will become the member of one person company, and the new member has to appoint a nominee within 15 days of becoming a member by obtaining a written consent, and the company has to file a INC4 within 30 days of the change with ROC stating that the nominee has become the member and he has appointed a nominee within 15 days. So like that they have to intimate with the ROC. So while filing the forms to ROC, they have to make a payment of prescribed fee as per companies companies registration offices and fees rules 2014. Okay, let's let's revise once. See, a nominee subscriber at the time of registration itself, the subscriber has to nominate a person. Why he has to be nominated? Reason, because the time of death or incapacity to contract by a subscriber, the nominee will become the member of one person company, and before indicating the nominee's name in the name in the memorandum, the subscriber has to obtain a written consent from the nominee, and then at the nominee. And so at the time of incorporation, along with form INC 32, form INC 3 also has to be filed along with prescribed fee. and and nominee will have a option to withdraw, and to withdraw that he has to give a notice to the member and also the one person company that he is withdrawing. So within 15 days of receipt of the notice, the member has to appoint a fresh nominee, this is new nominee, after obtaining a written consent, and he has to intimate to the company that he is going to appoint a new nominee, and the company within 30 days of receipt of the notice of withdrawal of consent from nominee, it has to file INC4 along with INC3 with prescribed fee along with the ROC. And then if the subscriber want to change the nominee, he can change at any time and for any reason, and after obtaining the prior consent of such another person in form INC3, and the company within 30 days of the change, it has to file INC4 along with INC3 with ROC along with the prescribed fee. And rule sub rule 6 and rule 4, what it says, the sole member in case of his death or in his incapacity, nominee become the member of one person company, the new member shall nominate one more nominee within 15 days of becoming a member, and company has to file INC 4 along with fees and INC 3 with ROC within 30 days of such change. Here we have to note one point that any change in the name of person shall not be deemed to be alteration of memorandum. So if there is any change in the member in case of death or capacity to contract incapacity to contract, then that kind of change, or if there is any change in the nominee, it should not be treated as an alteration of memorandum. Okay, now we have understood about what is meant by INC3, and what are the situations, or what are the situations when the nominee consent form has to be filed with ROC. Let's see how the form INC3 looks and what are the details we have to feed in it. Okay, now this is form number INC3. So what is form number INC3? It's a one-person company nominee consent form. What are the section that deals about INC3? Section 3 subsection 1 of Companies Act and the rule 4 of Incorporation Rules 2014, sub rule 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay. So form of language, it may English and refer to the instruction. See, along with this form INC3, there will be a instruction kit we can download from MCA website. So how to download also I will show you. You have to go for www.mca dot mca.gov.in. You have to click on this and then MCA services, companies forms download, INC 3. See here, one person company nominee consent form, E form with instruction kit and E form. So in this E form only E form will be there, but if you download this you will get an instruction kit also and how to file the E form. Okay, let's go for INC3. Here, SRN of run in case of new company or corporate identity of in case of existing company. See if one person company is forming newly, it's a new company, then SRN of the new company has to be filled, and if it is existing company, then SIN number, corporate identity number has to be filled. And if you give the details and if you click on pre-fill, then the name of company will automatically appear. Then here in consent you have to give the nominee name. I so and so nominee hereby my consent to become the member of one person company name in the event of death of the member name, that is the subscriber member of the company, or in his incapacity to the contract. So here nominee name has to be given. Here automatically the company name will appear and the previous member who is there, that person's name will appear. Then particulars of nominee, if he is having DIN, if he is having DIN, if we give the DIN number here, if we give pre-fill details, all the details will appear here. So if he is not having DIN, then income tax PAN number has to be given here and we have to verify the PAN details. So everything we have to get, like his first name, middle name or surname, and what is a family name if there is any family name, and then father's name or mother's name or spouse name whom that person wants to give, he can give, and gender, nationality and date of birth of that person, place of birth and educational qualification and occupation type. Then he has to give the permanent residential address. If permanent address and present address is same, then yes. So present address also the details will be filled from the permanent address. Then here they have to mention the duration of stay in the present address. If two are different things, then they have to mention the how many years they are residing in the present address. Then he has to give a proof of identity and residential proof. Let's see what kind of proof of identity and residential proof he can give. Um, So this is the instruction kit for eForm INC3 which I have showed in the ministry. So if you download this link, you will get INC3 form and also instruction kit INC3 help. So let's see. So what are the enclosures that has to be done, that has to be attached? That copy of PAN card and for proof of identity and residential proof has to be attached. So here, what kind of proof? Suppose for example residential proof, it may be a electricity bill or gas bill or any bank statement, something like that. He has to write this here. And then proof of identity, PAN card or ration card, like voters ID, those proof of identity has to be written here. Then here declaration, the person, the nominee has to sign this declaration here in this box column next to the nominee, and he has to mention the date on which he is filing, he is filling this form, and in from which place he is going to submit this. So here, what is the declaration? Let's see. I do solemnly declare that I am an Indian citizen and resident in India, and I have not been convicted of any offense in connection with the promotion, formation, or management of any company or LLP, and have not been found guilty of any fraud or misfeasance or of any breach of duty to any company under this act or any previous company law or LLP Act in the last 5 years. I further declare that I am not a nominee in any other one person company, and I shall comply with the eligibility criteria specified in Rule 3, Sub Rule 3 within the prescribed period. I understand that person nominating me as may withdraw my nomination without my consent. So this is the declaration which the nominee has to give. So what after filling all these details in this form, the after filling all these details, the printout of the same form has to be taken, and then the nominee has to sign here, and he has to mention, date and place, at the time of filing only it will be mentioned. So the nominee has to sign in this box, and then the printout along with the enclosures like copy of PAN card, proof of identity and residential proof has to be attached with this. And this form, this INC form has to be INC form has to be attached with SPICE form, that INC 32 in case of incorporation, and in other cases like change of nominee or in case of withdrawal consent of nominee, then along with INC 4 the form INC 3 has to be attached. Okay, so in next class we'll learn about INC 4. Thank you.